This is Tyler Weingartner and Kevin Van Ord from GameSpot. And we're trying out an experiment here, trying out a new streaming series that I've entitled The B-List, which is going to be kind of taking a look at a series of games that are great and often well-loved and maybe have sort of cult followings, but these are games that are either flawed in some way but still very interesting, or just have often been overlooked over the history of gaming. And today, maybe a little bit because, you know, Far Cry 3 is still fresh in everybody's mind, we are taking a look at Far Cry 2.
Oh boy.
You don't seem very enthused.
No, actually I really like Far Cry 2, and it's interesting though. It's always been a relatively divisive game. But there are true believers out there, true believers in Far Cry 2.
Yeah, which I wasn't originally. I first played this game when it first came out in 2008, and I got about halfway through it and then kind of lost the plot of it. And then when I started PC gaming again last year, I figured I'd come back to it and really finish this one up. So first we're here taking a look at the character select screen here, which is the character you play throughout the entirety of the game. It kind of doesn't matter, but I think it's interesting because these are all these guys that are like ex-mercenaries and security officers and private military, you know, people and things like that.
That guy was a bodyguard and a teamster. There was a dude back there. That's a very interesting combination.
We'll go with Paul Ferenc, who's a contraband smuggler. And we'll get into why I think that character select thing is a bit interesting later on. Actually, we'll just get straight into it now, because, I mean, these are all, like, hardened, bad, military, mean, mercenary people. And as you learn quickly, you know, real early on in the game, you really don't have much in the way of allies in this game. You know, pretty much everybody is out to get you. And, you know, it just seems, you know, contrary to what a lot of modern shooters tend to be these days, it's kind of the opposite of a power fantasy, because you're always outnumbered, you're often outgunned, you have to take careful care of your guns or they will jam and break on you, and, you know, as if things couldn't get worse, you have malaria.
Yeah, and well, I do want to point out too, because somebody is asking, this is the PC version of the game.
Yes, this is. We are playing the PC version,
and
mouse and keyboard, which, sorry to make you slightly nauseous there.
That's alright, I usually tend to be that way anyway. And this is vanilla unmodded,
yes.
I presume.
Yeah. I'm not actually that terribly aware of the modding community in Far Cry 2, so I haven't really dipped too much of a toe into that. Just playing the plain old version of that. So yeah, I played through this game again last year and had a really fascinating time with it. Just realizing how much strategy and planning had to go through. Yeah, you had to go into executing this game, which I found very different from the way I played Far Cry 3. Because, yeah, Far Cry 3 I kind of played in a playstyle I described a bit like a magpie, where, you know, I was trying to do something, but I got distracted by, you know, ooh, look, there's boars to hunt. I need some of those to make my, you know, ammunition sling or something like that.
Right.
You know, and this is a game where if you get distracted by something off on the side of the road, that can completely derail what you're trying to do, because then suddenly you get waylaid by a bunch of patrolling militia, and then instead of having enough supplies to go after the mission that you're trying to go for, now you're short on health supplies and ammo and all that.
Right. It's interesting looking at the visuals of this, and of course we're in Africa here as opposed to the very tropical location of Far Cry 3, but it definitely is striking how dry and savanna-like, and the browns and the greens are very toned down as opposed to the lush, oversaturated look of the sequel.
Right, and although there are some pretty dense jungle areas in this game, and some fairly lush areas, it's not all just scrubby savanna. Although that is what people tend to remember most about this game.
Right.
But yeah, it does always have this kind of brown, undersaturated look to it. I guess this was a bit when that was real popularity. And so if you want a game to look realistic, make it very brown.
Well, and I think even beyond that, I think it's certainly searched for a way to make it look relatively real, whereas I would say Far Cry 3 across the board has a heightened tone as opposed to the more downplayed tone of Far Cry 2, just across the board from story to visuals to whatnot.
Yeah. So the bit that we won't be getting this far into this game because I think we're just going to be playing this game for like hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. So we're not going to be getting that deep into the game. But the part where I really lost the plot early on was you do have one ally in this game, and it's kind of a dynamic system. You have your buddy, who's a guy or a woman. There's a couple of female mercenaries that you cannot pick, but will end up being some of your companions, and they don't often help you directly, but you basically get a mission from any of the either the two opposing warlords here, and then to go do an assassination or retrieve some vital bit of data or something like that, and then soon after your buddy will call you and say, hey, if you help me out with this thing I'm working on, I have a lead on something that will make your mission easier. It turns missions into this, real multi-step process, and it really stretches out the length of them. And sometimes it does make them pretty significantly easier. Sometimes I'm not always sure that was the case, but. And then usually they always ended with a sequence where your buddy gets ambushed and you have to rescue them, and at any point you could also end up killing your buddy, but pretty much his or her life is always in your hands. And then there's a pivotal moment halfway through the game where your buddy ends up dying, and as much as this is a game that is all about you having control over just about every situation, I felt it a bit disingenuous that then suddenly it took the control away from me and said, hey, your buddy is dead and it has nothing to do with you, it just happened. And that frustrated me, but...
Well, welcome to the modern shooter where things sometimes just happen to you.
Well, in most of the modern shooters, pretty much everything happens,
right.
Regardless of your input into the game.
Sure.
But in this case, it seemed pretty disingenuous for what the game had established.
Oh, sure. When a game says, here is our set of rules, and then later proceeds to break its own rules, that's always very frustrating.
Yeah. So there I saw my first malarial outbreak, and I'm going to, while we see this bit of exposition here with the game's antagonist, the Jackal, I'm going to get a little bit more game audio going.
The Tiger's presence in the state continues to be a stabilizing influence. He's largely responsible for the recent influx of weapons into the country and clear violation of the joint signatory framework.
So the story here is that you're dropped into this African, kind of nameless African city, or African country that has a massive civil war going on. There's two opposing warring factions, the UFFL and the APR, and you end up working with both of them to get to this guy as the arms dealer who is bringing all the weapons into the country that allows the war to continue.
Saying nobody kills me. Nobody. I'm the one who decides who lives and who dies. Me.
Now you see this happening here already, but one of the things that super irritated me about this game that I never really got over was the voice acting. Because, and you'll see it across the board, there is a speeded up sort of flow to the way people talk all through the game, and it's not just one character, it's pretty much every character, and I don't know if this is confirmed, but certainly Sean McInnes, the other Far Cry 2 expert in the game besides you, has suggested that it has to do with the way the audio was compressed so that it would fit on the disc. obviously not necessarily a concern for the PC version, but of course they're going to use the same files
Right.
for all versions of the game. So, and it definitely bothered me pretty much the entire time I played this game, the way people talked and the unnatural fast cadence
Yeah.
of their voices.
And here's a bit of tutorial.
And of course, as we find out later, fire is very important, and not just because it looks very pretty in this game.
This is not my fight.
But as you'll soon discover, certain things are just meant to happen.
Yeah.
It has been suggested that they just talk like that in Africa.
Perhaps I haven't been to Africa, which is a big place, but yeah, maybe that is the case.
I would suggest that no, that's not the case.
Probably not. And by getting shot in the face, I have successfully escaped the ceasefire zone.
Better do some first aid on that.
Oh, God!
And one of the best things about Far Cry 2 is all of the super gnarly first aid animations.
Who you working
Far Cry 3 had those too, but they didn't...
with? Do you know that?
The wounds looked even deeper here than it did in the sequel. That
Yeah.
looked like, oh my God.
Yeah, there are tons of them, and you know, there's tons of great stuff on YouTube of just. Okay, I guess I have to save first before going to going over to that medical kit there, which I definitely want to use. But yeah, there's just so much more variety and just gnarliness, and you know, if you go look on YouTube, you can find tons of them, like, you know, like pulling a piece of like rebar out of your leg, and here are some guns.
I mean, just looking at how deep that hole was in your palm,
Yeah.
that alone is just... That just freaked me out.
Now listen up. You should really.
And that's one you tend to see a lot, is the I'm going to use a pair of pliers to pull a bullet out of me. But
For the ADR. I've got
That's how I'd handle it,
Yeah.
quite honestly.
yeah, you see him pulling out of your leg and, you know, out of your forearm and things like
Get
that.
that rust bucket two-door
Yeah,
out.
the rarer ones, like
You know how to fix cars? Go out there and
like pulling the rebar out, or, you know, resetting a broken bone in your arm or leg, or
Oh.
something like that.
Snap.
Although I think one of my favorites is one that it's hard to figure out exactly what's going on through most of it. But then you just end up, you know, you see your hand kind of reach up to the camera's viewpoint, and then just like ripping a tooth out. Hello, chickens.
They are not attack chickens, however. You cannot blow the door off of their coop and have them attack locals
Unfortunately,
on your
not.
behalf.
Yeah, another odd one about the about Far Cry 3 is or Far Cry 2. Sorry about that. Is that you pretty much never leave the interface of the game. So here, you know, we're looking at our map, and yeah, I mean, I'm still in the game. I can still walk around and get shot at and all that good stuff.
Yeah, there's no pausing per
Yeah.
se to look at your map and whatnot.
And another one of my favorites, the magic bolt. So, you know, cars, you know, and other vehicles used to get around, take damage. occasionally need to take time to go and fix them, and you just lift up the hood and just crank down this pesky bolt that keeps coming loose, and that's how vehicle repair is done in Africa. Tutorial. Yes.
The good news is that once you do that stuff, the game doesn't bother you incessantly reminding you how to do it.
Yeah.
Which is one place Far Cry 2 has an upper hand on Far Cry 3.
Okay, good. Now that you're mobile, let's see if you can handle something that shoots back. Your fella's got a small outpost have a click north of here. Now that the bullets are flying again, I don't want them there. Get rid of them.
Okay, now I believe. Yes, now I can take my car and get my handy map out. I know which way I'm going. Although I will say that the driving mechanics in Far Cry 3 were much better than in this game.
That is a true thing.
Yeah, because they feel like real vehicles, and in this game it's functional, but it's not interesting. So when I'm in my map mode, I can pull out my monocle and I can use it to scout places out. It's not as deep as it was in Far Cry 3. But
and also, they're much hardier, it seems, in Far Cry 2. Oh. You are out.
fine, I will burn you.
We also do that.
I've also set fire to the safe house, but we'll just give this a couple minutes while the...
It'll be fine.
Yeah. I'll just... take a moment to answer my cell phone.
New message. Just got word you cleared out that post. Well done. I've got another job for you, but I can't have you passing out in the middle of it. Grab some shut-eye resupply and be ready to go in a few hours. You'll be safe with that house.
He's very confident that you'll be safe.
He doesn't know I just set the place on fire.
Because one thing that Far Cry 3 did not have was the buddy system.
It did not. Well, I mean, no, it didn't.
You definitely had people that you worked with through the course of the game, but
yeah.
nothing really like the buddy system per se.
Yeah, and you know, as you when you interact with a bed, I would like to interact with a bed. How long should I sleep for? Nice.
Oh, I don't know. I will say there's something to be said for an interface that is less gamey than what we're used to. Far Cry 3 went back to that gamey type interface, while this tried very hard to keep it as part of the game world.
Always keep you immersed in it and never really let you out of it.
And it had its pluses and its minuses.
All right, man. I need you to scout out a UFLL camp further north of your position, an old slaughterhouse. I want a full list of their men and their supply stores. The spot's marked on your map. Head there now.
Yeah, because the...
Careful if you need to shoot. You have nothing.
That's right. Go back to my pistol here. That's okay. I think the next stop on my trip is to stop off at the gun store.
Whenever anybody says something like the gun store, this is way off topic, but has anybody ever heard a commercial for a furniture outlet called the Room Store? It had a little jingle. I don't know, like, whether it was nationwide or whether it was a very local thing, but it had this little jingle that went, "At the Room Store," and so anytime anybody says "at the blank store," I always silently sing it to myself.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Oh. This is not as I was hoping.
That'll come in handy.
Come on, reload, let's go!
Sure, I'm answering my phone right now.
Can you see a bricked up building there? Supposedly UFLL's got a hostage in there. Or a national like you. You're to get in there and
Get
free
off the
them. Take
phone.
care of it.
That actually reminds me, I don't know if you played Call of Juarez the Cartel. In Call of Juarez the Cartel, you could actually... You just auto-answered your phone at certain points and it didn't matter what you were doing. So you could be in the middle of contact. Of combat. Oh my god! It looks like he's just shoving that right through his palm. I think they're dead.
Yeah. Just pulling all these bullets at me.
Jeez. Oh, Tyler.
Let's try that again. I thought I was going to be stopping off at the gun store first, but not the case.
I hope you have a decent save.
It'll be back at the safe house I just left.
Hooray.
So apologies for that.
Oh, never apologize.
Alright, man. I need you to scout out a UFLL camp.
Nokia is big in Africa.
Known slaughterhouse. I want a full list of their men and their supply stores. The spot's marked on the map. Head there now.
Well, my understanding of this part of the world is pretty dim, but I understand that they favor... Do I even have access to a gun store yet? I do not. Well, that's fine.
You can always go to the cockfights.
But they are big fans of stuff that is rugged and runs reliably for a long time. So I understand it's common to find a lot of like old Mercedes. And, you know, just because, I mean, yes, a bit of a luxury car when it's new, but after a while it just becomes a tough old thing that runs forever. And I would tend to think of Nokia phones much the same way.
You might want to scrounge for some ammo. In fact, I'm surprised there wasn't any at the
old cockfight space.
Well, even at the safe house.
Yeah, there's not much. I mean, that ends up being a thing you have to unlock. So here's a gun I might be able to retreat to. But I think the real answer here is to take a stealthier approach. How far away? Oh, the small hit. They even tell you. If I hadn't just run in here like I was playing a Call of Duty game. Driving up and saying, "Hey, everybody.
Hey, guys, I'm here with my gun."
It's your friend, Paul Ferenc.
Somebody's saying, how is this game? I heard it sucks. I have Far Cry 3. I would definitely say this is not a game that sucks. I would not use that phrase as a whole to describe Far Cry 2.
Well, that's kind of why we're playing it today, so
Yeah.
people who are curious about it can check it out. So the scouting isn't as significant as it was in Far Cry 3. Yeah, you're really just picking out a couple of, like, where the important stuff on the map is, but not really. You don't end up like tracking soldiers and things like that, and you know the different types of soldiers that you find in Far Cry 2.
Wrap up your survey and take care of it.
Somebody's saying if you have Far Cry 3, don't bother with the previous titles. I don't know that I would necessarily say that.
Well, it's not like there's a narrative that you really need to catch up on that Far Cry. you know, the story of Far Cry 2 is not expanded on in Far Cry 3, or you need to play through this game to understand the narrative. Because narratively, those games are completely divorced from one another.
But I do think that there is worth to playing Far Cry 2 even now.
Yeah.
And honestly, worth playing the original Far Cry as well, if only to see Crytek's start before Crysis came along, and of course Crysis 2 and so on.
Right. So, yeah. So this is where, you know, Crytek kind of got their start, and then, you know, it's been taken over since then. You know, the development of the series by Ubisoft Montreal, as Crytek has gone on to become an EA studio. Maybe I can.
I don't think they're owned by EA. I could be wrong about that, but I do think that.
Let's try some stealthy approach. Okay.
Okay, down he goes.
Well, I probably should have.
They're blabbing though, but it looks like you've got some ammo. Ah! Reload. They really are very hardy compared to Far Cry 3 for sure. Takes a few more bullets to get these dudes down.
Yeah, Far Cry 3, you know, get in one clean headshot.
Shoot the barrel. Do it. There you go. You got a Molotov cocktail, I bet. I'm backseat gaming. I'm gonna just come over here. It's always easy to be the one that's not controlling the thing.
Hey, buddy.
But yeah, and I do think Far Cry 1 is a very interesting game, and there's unfortunately, if you have a 64-bit system, you can have trouble running it. There is a 64-bit patch for the original Far Cry if you do pick that up, but there's no guarantee necessarily that it'll absolutely work. And unfortunately, even when it does, for example, on my PC, it runs like crud. Whoa. You're like, what the heck's going on?
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I'm out of malarial pills again.
What the fuck is happening? Who are you?
But here is where we find our first buddy.
There's one very bad case of malaria.
He can tell just by looking at you.
Yeah. This man is a trustworthy guy.
Later you find me at Mike's bar. I know a guy who can give you medicine, okay?
Okay.
Alrighty. Tell me where I can get
I'm gonna
some
start
medicine.
speaking in real life like the people in Far Cry 2. With no pause between my words, really. And very fast.
Well, that's
and
just
cadence.
the whole shtick of that zero punctuation guy, right?
Well, yeah, but he's got enthusiasm.
True.
That's the... If you're speaking of Yahtzee.
Yes.
Yeah, he's got enthusiasm.
He's got all the enthusiasm.
Somebody's saying, what do I think about the idea of a Far Cry 3 movie?
Good job. Maybe I was a little quick to judge you. Tell you what.
Yes and no. I don't think that story that they tell in Far Cry 3 would make for necessarily a great movie, because I think part of its success relies on the way only games really can tell narratives.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Far Cry does best is, you know, these games really are at their very best when, yeah, you're playing through they're very systemic driven games. So what I mean by that is that, and Far Cry 3 got away from this quite significantly with the story missions, but everything else in the game is pretty much a series of systems where, you know, the enemies are spawned, you know, in real time, and they interact with each other and with the wildlife in the game, and yeah, everything is interacting, and you're just a part of everything that's going on. And what this means is this is a game where tons of random stuff can happen, and that's what makes the games very exciting. Far Cry 2 didn't do this quite as much, but or Far Cry 3 didn't do it quite as much, and that was weird.
Well, you're not supposed to be doing that, right? You need to get back to the safe house and get pills.
I was trying to get onto the marker. Now
Really? I thought you were going in the very opposite direction of the marker.
Now I am dead of malaria. But yeah, with in the case of Far Cry 2, when you get these missions, they're usually they're pretty simple, like go assassinate this guy, or go retrieve this vital bit of intel.
You're even sicker than I thought. Okay. Here's the thing about the local economy. The only currency worth anything is diamonds. Forget the paper money. I wouldn't wrap a fish with it. When you work for the APR, you get paid in stones.
When you work with the APR, you get paid in stones. Well, one of my men, not one of the right ones, picked up.
I dropped him off here yesterday. He stuck him somewhere in the camp and then went and took a bullet back in town. Maybe you killed him.
Yeah, Batman's roommate is like, so you just randomly fall out of your vehicle.
That was a weird happening.
This is a game where if there are certain times where if you don't do what you're expected, things can happen that you don't necessarily have a reason for at first. Certain things become clear
It's okay, he can leave now.
later on.
See you.
Ah, yes. Diamond tracking.
Diamond tracking is not a very
enjoyable
part of this game.
No. They just sort of got around that by just putting things on the map and saying, here you go, this is where stuff is.
Yeah.
But I do think that Far Cry 3 had a much more interesting economy, for sure, than this game did. A more fully realized one.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was definitely a lot more meaningful. And, one of the significant, because we'll hopefully be getting to the gun stores pretty soon, especially now that I have money to buy a rifle.
Somebody's saying, what are my thoughts about Jason Brody compared to the Far Cry 1 and 2 character, whoever he is? Well, Far Cry 2 doesn't really even have a character. It's a cipher. You do choose.
Yeah, you choose who you play, but it's a pretty meaningless decision.
Yeah.
Pretty much, the character that you choose is basically your decision of which one of these characters do I not want to interact with the game as a buddy, because the buddies end up being any of the characters that you don't choose.
Right.
Again, like I mentioned, there are a couple of female characters that will be your buddies. You can't choose them, but otherwise, they're all people that you could potentially have picked at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, and Far Cry 1, the lead character's name was Jack Carver in that game, and he was actually a pretty interesting character. So you've got Jason Brody in Far Cry 3, who's like very college-age bro kind of guy,
Yeah.
frat boy sort of guy who goes off on his power trip and so on and so forth in Far Cry 3. Jack Carver was more of an Indiana Jones type, if you will.
Wore a pretty good Hawaiian shirt, if I recall correctly.
Yes, he wore a lovely Hawaiian shirt.
Which is the thing more video game characters should wear.
But I'd say Far Cry 1 is a lot more like Crysis, like the original Crysis, than it is like Far Cry 2.
Yeah, which makes sense considering the developer.
Sure.
But
I feel like with Far Cry 3, the series sort of came to what it more or less needed to be in certain respects. Ubisoft Montreal picked up the sequel and had some great ideas, and then I think a lot of them really did come to fruition. You can see the signs of that particular developer at work. If you know Ubisoft Montreal, you usually have an idea of sort of the way their games play, sort of, and the way they're structured, and because they make Prince of Persia and Assassin's Creed and some other games as well.
Yeah, although I feel like now they've really kind of delved into a realm of forming games that are like constantly entertaining sandboxes.
Yes.
Maybe to some degree at the risk of the game's narrative. Which I think that narrative is really strong in the Assassin's Creed 2 trilogy, we'll just call it that. I think it was left by the wayside a little bit in Assassin's Creed 3.
I agree with that.
And the narrative in so much is that you're hunting down this arms dealer. That's right, I'm supposed to buy guns first. That's why there's nobody here. And, the narrative here is much more about the exciting things that happen to you and the way the game systems unfold in creative and interesting ways.
This always reminds me of Stalker when I come in here. I don't know if you've ever played Stalker or anything, but whenever I go into one of these places and there's like some, well, in this case there's no dude behind the fence. But.
Which kind of this leads naturally into the weird gun vending machines in Far Cry 3. So where you actually buy your guns is at this I love this great computer interface. You know, so this is where the important thing about this is that here is where you get guns that will end up being permanently yours. I'm going to buy a G3K A4 because that sounds like a fine gun.
Do you have enough diamonds?
I have 10 diamonds.
Oh, there you go.
So I will.
Oh, you could get potentially both the assault and the shotgun.
I think. What else can I buy? I think I'm gonna bank this for later. I don't know if I want a shotgun.
That's a good idea. That sound effect, by the way, when you were clicking between, sounded a lot like the Atari 2600 Pac-Man gobble sound. Yeah,
without being too overtly referencing any computer interfaces, I just love the weird, you know, sounds of that computer. But yeah, so you pretty much the only time you ever see a dude here is that every now and again you get missions to attack convoys, and what that does for you is it gets you some additional weapons that you can that are then available for purchase. So you do have to unlock guns and then purchase them. So, and now, of course, we also get the stuff available. Ooh, a silenced shotgun. If you buy this game on Steam now, which I think on Steam it's like $10 or something ridiculous like that, you get this additional Fortunes pack that gets you an explosive crossbow and adds some additional vehicles like I can't remember what they're for. I think they call it the utility truck, but if you're familiar with the military use vehicle, the Unimog, it's basically just a big off-roader truck, usually with a 50 caliber machine gun, which is useful for clearing out the checkpoint camps.
That is one interesting thing about Far Cry 3 is I was always kind of sad that if I were driving a vehicle, there was nobody there to get in the turret. If I wanted to use the turret, it was essentially you moving from spot to spot. You can still do that here, but...
Yeah.
It was
the E. No, it's not the E key. But yeah, here you can just crawl to the turret and use the fine machine gun. I think you can blow this barrel up.
There you go.
But surprisingly, it lit nothing on fire, but knocked that barrel around pretty good.
Yes.
And here's the guy we rescued.
Maybe not, whatever. My name is Joseph.
He is my first and best buddy.
So, if you have
it's kind of like real life.
medicine, no problem. That guy right there has pills, plenty of them. You ask.
You ask.
And sometime you get in trouble, you find me. I help you. It's what I do best. Help people. I help whole village practically back home. 10 nieces, 12 nephews.
He helps the whole village. 10 nieces, 10 nephews.
No place for kids.
What kind of help was that, Joseph?
Although, the one thing I do like about the idea of these guys always talking very quickly is it just gives you the sense that everybody's like always all business here.
Now adventure begins.
Now
adventure begins. That's very forthcoming.
I was waiting for you to tell me that. Did I talk to you? That's right.
You people never stop. Here's the bloody tip, alright? That's it. That's all I've got.
Take it. Take it.
Give me the prompt to take it.
Well, aren't you going to destroy it? You're a jackboot. That's what you are.
You're a jackboot, Tyler. Man, you are such a damn jackboot.
Well, aren't you going to destroy it? That's what your friends usually do. Wait, you're not here for the tips, are you? Oh, I see the problem now. You can get the pills you need from the church in Pala. The priest there will help you, assuming you make it in time. Just passes along for me.
Well, okay.
Now you can take it.
You can't break a man the way you break a dog or a horse. The harder you beat a man, the top.
Oh.
Okay.
Alright. I just
I
canceled
thought you had.
Yeah, what?
Is there a GameSpot headquarters? Somebody is asking. Yes, we work in an office here in the CBS Interactive building in San Francisco.
Yes.
You name it.
And second, are you... Hang on, I gotta scroll over. Something's got this all. I think it says, are you paid?
We have additional headquarters is in London, and Sydney, Australia,
Yes, that is true as well.
in Singapore.
Singapore, where I've never been. And yes, we are paid. This is our job.
Yes.
So we are lucky enough to get paid for something that we love. And the third question is, what do we think of Far Cry 3's realism? To which my first answer is that there's realism?
Yeah. Far Cry 3 is a game that doesn't have a lot of realism.
I would say that there are touches of authenticity, meaning that I like the way that there is an ecology on the island because animals more or less behave in what feels like natural ways. The way vehicles feel as you drive them feel more or less like you would expect a rickety vehicle traveling over rough terrain to feel.
It is believable.
It is believable. It is not realistic.
Yeah,
that's a good way of putting it.
Well, it's how I described the difference between when I saw The Hobbit recently. How I described the way that movie made me feel versus the other Lord of the Rings movies. I imagine, I don't want to get any spoiler stuff here, but in the Lord of the Rings, which is a fantastic world, so you have to suspend your disbelief to go, okay, this is a world where there are wizards. Okay, I can accept that. But when you saw the scene with the cave troll, you didn't need to know. You didn't need to have ever fought a cave troll to know what the consequences of that fight were going to be like if it bashes you with its club. But there were action sequences in The Hobbit that really defied belief and broke my immersion in the world.
Right.
So, going back to Far Cry 3, that is a game where believable things happen, even though they're far beyond the realm of what we could expect from our day-to-day life.
Right.
I mean, there's the conceit that you're this regular, everyday, 20-something dude who gets kidnapped by pirates and then manages, and a wonderful sequence where you escape, just barely by the skin of your teeth. But then, for pretty much shortly afterwards, you're given money to go purchase a handgun, and then from there you just blaze a path of destruction across the entire island. With that handgun, you've got to take over your first. You've got to take over your first pirate hideout, and from there, you kill one guy, and then you're able to grab his AK-47, and you're pretty unstoppable from there. Not bad for a kid from Southern California.
Hey.
What's your gun?
I would like to enter your warlord fortress. Am I in the right place, or do I need to go somewhere else first? I need to go to the other one. Fine.
So he says, what do you think looks better, this or Far Cry 3? I think the question of that sort of depends on what you're expecting. I think both... We've talked about this before, earlier in the stream, which is that I think both games attempt to set a very different tone from each other.
I mean, in a very technical very technical sense, yes, Far Cry 3 is a better looking game. But, it's also this, hyper stylized, very lush, always very appealing, looking game.
Very tropical looking. The blues are very blue, the greens are very green, and so on and so forth.
It's an extremely inviting looking game.
Right.
Whereas this is a game that looks pretty uncomfortable most of the time. I would almost describe the way this game looks as hostile. Which I think is very much the overall feeling of the game.
You want a job? We got one. It's good. Assassination. Chief of police. Bam. Careful. Tell him what to find this man.
He's riding in a motorcade. It's a moving target. You'll have to pick a spot on the road and wait for him to come to you.
That little penis will be in a great big SUV.
But yeah, this game definitely strikes a more realistic tone.
Yeah.
You expect that if you were to go to certain places in Africa, that it probably looks something like what this game is showing.
Yeah.
I don't think that if I went to a tropical island that I would expect the waters to be as blue as they are in Far Cry 3, or I wouldn't expect...
They are actually quite blue.
Oh yeah, I've been to certain places, but I'm trying to come up with a word. I guess just a slight oversaturation of color is a big part of Far Cry 3's
Far Cry 3 it kind of looks like when you take your vacation photos from there. That's what you hope they look like. I guess would be a way to say that.
It's definitely a postcard look. Where you know that they took the photograph that was taken and they put it through a filter to brighten up some of those colors. That's sort of how Far Cry 3 looks to me.
Although it also... So here we go, we're getting a call from our buddy saying, hey, I heard you just got this mission to go do bad things like assassinate the police chief. I have some intel that can help you with that. And so here we get two different objective pointers. We can go to the north, go meet with Josip, or just go straight to do the police assassination. Let's go see what Josip has in mind. I like the name Josip. I like saying the name Josip. And let's
if there was a food called Josip, it would probably be delicious.
That's weird. Okay, so he is just immediately to the north. So here, one of the things that's very helpful in navigating the world of Far Cry 3 is the lovely bus system. Because this is a game where you just get shot at a lot, even navigating the world. So the bus system works kind of like a fast travel, where it lets you travel to the center of the map as well as kind of its four corners. And none of these roads are really leading me quite to where I would like to get to, but I'm going to use this vehicle anyways because it has a gun on it. Further on the visuals of this game, I think they pan out a little bit more in a gameplay sense. Like in Far Cry 3, nighttime didn't really work. It didn't really function that heavily into gameplay, both in terms of visuals, because it still was pretty easy
bright
to
for nighttime, right?
It was really bright. It was easy to see pretty much all the time. I'm gonna consult my map again a little bit and see what I have coming my way. No checkpoints, and then just have a little safe house up there, so I'll probably need to clear that out. Actually, I think the safe houses your buddies meet you at are automatically cleared, so that's good. Here's another thing you get from working with your buddies. You sometimes get free safe houses. But also, I don't think that nighttime played into enemy AI behavior at all in Far Cry 3. I think they behaved exactly the same way and kept the same patrols. Whereas in this game, nighttime is pretty dark, so it works to your disadvantage in that sense. You know, it's harder to... Hello, checkpoint. Goodbye, checkpoint.
I think you're in trouble. Somebody asking about the controls if they feel right.
It's a tricky call to make, because I'm not sure exactly what they mean by feel right. I've never been a mercenary in Africa, though I'm not sure if that's what you're asking.
Let's say if you've played another shooter, is this game more or less feel like you expect it to feel, all things being equal?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing, and you mentioned this a couple of times, is that enemies are kind of tough, and you know, it takes a lot of bullets to bring a guy down. The weapons degradation, which I haven't really talked about yet because I haven't really needed to yet, you know, is something that happens. It happens at a pretty pronounced rate. I mean, the reason why you need to buy guns from the gun stores are those are the ones that you owned and and they're always in good condition. If you're just scavenging weapons from enemies, those are not always going to be in very good condition. In fact, are pretty much universally in bad condition, and those will jam and break on you pretty readily. If you continue to, you do need to stop into the gun shops from time to time to freshen up your weapons, and doing that will basically you basically just exchange it for a new copy of the gun you already have. It is less prone to damage. They're getting damage through jamming and breaking, and life is generally better for you because. When you're completely surrounded by enemies and then the gun you're relying on suddenly doesn't work anymore, that's a deeply concerning thing.
So, you're working at APR now to take out police chief. They pay good. I have a proposition for you. What if I told you police chief's brother lived over there?
So a few things being asked here. Let's see if we can get through all these. I like answering questions when we know the answers at least. Somebody's saying, number one, if any of our new shows will involve the community so that people can do multiplayer, and I would imagine that there will be opportunities to do that.
Sure.
Take the ledger.
So, absolutely. Just keep an eye out. I think we're still sort of solidifying what we want to do and when, but our goal is to have programming happening lots of the time.
Yes.
So we definitely want to do that whenever we can. Let's see what else is being asked.
And just in not necessarily keeping in with the community just yet, or much in that same way, but this show is, as I have said, is going to be looking at and playing games that we and others think are pretty cool. But are often overlooked by people, or games that are flawed, games that have some problems, but are still significant or important in some other degree. And we definitely want to take a look at the games that maybe we have overlooked and we don't know a ton about. So we will often, I will from time to time be calling for suggestions of games that people think are interesting.
And sometimes those are the most worthwhile, are those games that are sort of flawed and sometimes not even necessarily fun, but yet are definitely worth looking at for their ideas, for all sorts of reasons.
I find that in a lot of ways those are the games that stick with you longer.
They're so unique, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to look back on. I think also there's a certain amount of sometimes those are the games that are easier to love, because it's hard to really find that you love something that is universally liked and appraised by everybody. I think now is an excellent time for me to learn what button it is to get me into the...
Is it X? Oh, there you go.
It's not E. Well...
For some reason I wanted to say it was X, but I don't know if that's actually... Wow, one of the Far Cry 2 true believers is here, who definitely says he appreciates the atmosphere, map design, difficulty, weather, style, and buying system a lot more than Far Cry 3. So, and we definitely recognize that Far Cry 3 is one of those sort of cult classics where some people are very dedicated to this game.
It's really divisive. I mean, and for a lot of good reason. I mean, by modern standards, this is not, even at the standards of the time, this was a tough game to love. I mean, it was a game that was pretty much difficult all the time. It had this, weird thing where, you have to be on your guard all the time because you never actually leave the system of the game. There's no safe menu for you to hang out in and do your inventory or anything like that. And it was a game that in an era where Call of Duty was really in its stride. This is a game without a real strong narrative.
Although interestingly, it does try to do something with its own narrative in a conceptual way once you get towards the end.
Speaking of systems of the game, I get to find out the hard way now. No, I cannot survive that fall into the river.
I thought you were gonna make that one too.
I thought it was too. Oh, but
Oh wait, but your buddy is there.
my buddy
Or
is
a
here
buddy
to-
is there.
Yeah, my second best buddy.
Back yourself up, man. You're gonna drop dead.
Okay.
It's always good to have somebody having your back, you know.
Yeah, so that's one of the other functions of the buddies is, in addition to giving you these extrapolated mission paths, you also in a firefight where you fall prey to being hurt, you know, they will help instead of having to go back to a save point. Which I will do a save now because I don't have that. I don't have my parachute anymore. They will pull you up and get you out of there and get you back to a safe spot.
Somebody's asking what program we use to stream, and I would suggest that it's a fairly complex setup that allows us to stream to multiple sources at once. That includes GameSpot itself.
Right. I mean, we do a fairly complicated method of streaming that functions more in a typical video production environment. It isn't the sort of thing that I mean, streaming has really become very easy for just about anybody to get into, because you have products like the. Is it public that is it publicly available, the streaming tools in the Elgato Game Capture?
Yes, absolutely. Elgato Game Capture HD is a great source for folks. There's also stuff from Hapaga, like the Hapag HD PVR2, and Roxio has a couple different options, and of course Blackmagic has
Yeah.
a few options depending on whether you want internal or external devices. My high recommendation right now is that Elgato HD, Game Capture HD, because it's so small, and the software now allows you to not just capture, but to also record. And you can also capture and you can also record and stream at the same time, which is very nice. So
Yeah, if you're playing on a PC, you can also use software like XSplit that'll let you. I mean, I imagine I've never used it before. I imagine you need a pretty beefy PC rig to be able to play a game and stream from it at the same time because you're doing live video encoding, that sort of thing.
yeah, and even when it seems to, for example, I've streamed using XSplit and whatnot before using, with modern PC games, and even when the game doesn't take a hit with the frame rate too badly, it can still cause like very jittery because the bit rate that you're streaming at is different than necessarily the refresh rate on your monitor and so forth. A lot of times, like, mouse look can start to become really jerky, even if the frame rate itself seems like it's holding up. So, but I have really good luck now streaming directly. What I usually do is, if I want to do PC streaming, I use the Elgato now, and I just use the HDMI out on my PC, and I put the software on the laptop. So I basically just stream from a laptop and do it that way. And now I'm just getting boring. But you can do it.
I'm going to kind of go with the high chaos option. I'm just going to start spamming these explosive crossbow bolts.
Yeah.
Which that's the fun way to go about it. So here I'm supposed to collect a police ledger, I believe is what I'm doing here.
So he's saying the varied environments in Far Cry 2 didn't do much for the game when there wasn't any variety of activities to do in them, and there's something to be said for that. I'm sort of reminded of I don't know if anybody out in the chat has played the game Fuel, which was an open world driving game.
Codemasters open world racing game.
Yeah. That game was super interesting. It had this enormous world and absolutely nothing to do in it, almost to the point where you wonder why the world was sort of even there. All the races were carved out of the open world, sort of in that Burnout Paradise kind of way, but I think what they wanted to do is take that idea of a driving open world like Test Drive, Unlimited, or or even Burnout Paradise or something like that. But ultimately, it was just so big, the world didn't seem to serve much purpose.
I think the other reason why it feels like there's I mean, you know, it's a big open world with lots of different environments, but because the game lets you play exactly the way you want it to, that means that, and it relies, you know, the gameplay loop depends entirely on unscripted stuff, tends to mean that if the gameplay is lacking variety, that onus is kind of on you.
In certain ways, yeah.
You know, if you want more, you know, because a lot of times you find yourself in a core loop of like, hey, this is the stuff I'm good at, you know. When you find yourself really enjoying the way the sniping works in a game, and because you can approach the mission however you want, suddenly every mission is a sniping mission.
There is something to be said for a structure that is open enough to give you the freedom, but has enough of a structure to sort of lead you from one thing to the next. I think Far Cry 3 does actually a really great job of that, giving you purpose to moving from one space to another that maybe Far Cry 2 doesn't.
Right.
I'm also reminded, for example, of Mafia and Mafia 2, which also took place in open worlds, but didn't often make good use of that world. Yeah, well, there wasn't really much reason for that world to be an open world. Right.
I mean, at least here, you can decide what, you know, as we're still early on in the structure of the game, and it hasn't completely opened up to us, but I mean, at least here, you can decide the order that you want to do things in. Like, you know, you need to do missions for the resistance so that you can get more malaria pills.
Right.
Or, you know, you can attack the convoys to get access to more guns. You know, to the point where, you know, you don't need to embark on these buddy missions, but even though now I'm choosing to. Where was that man shooting at me from? Check my map and see where it is I'm supposed to be going.
Says, can you say something about this game, Hour of Victory? Wasn't that a... Oh, and yes, somebody says Mafia 2 was great, in my opinion. Yes, I do believe Mafia 2 was great, but I wouldn't say that it's a good example of an open world being put to its best use. Somebody wants us to say something about Hour of Victory. What more can really be said about Hour of Victory at this point, except, boy, that game sucked.
Yeah. That was the... Was that Namco?
Midway? I want to say it was
Midway. Midway, is that yet another World War II shooter?
Except it was broken. Oh, that was a very dramatic death.
You have leisure. Now Captain is running like Little Rabbit. Get him at his police station.
Alright, Captain running like Little Rabbit. Stairs? Nah.
Who needs stairs? As long as you don't take any fall damage, then you're all covered.
Alright, so where is this next? All the way over there. Okay.
Somebody's saying, can you please guys stream cryostasis?
Ooh!
That would actually be a really great candidate for this very show.
Right, yeah, that would, and what is this? What was the other game that I always relate to that? Because it's from the same publisher, Necrovision?
Necrovision, it was from the same, yeah. Because I remember when we got that game, and you were saying, "Hey, I went to an E3 demonstration."
No, it was at I can't remember if it was either. I think it was at the Leipzig.
Oh
trade
yeah.
show, back before Gamescom took over that business. Yes, I attended a demo for that game, and I don't think I was too shy about saying I thought those games all looked terrible. And
yeah, I wouldn't say
many,
either one of those games was terrible. Ultimately,
one of the times I was well. I'm always happy to be wrong when I think something is going to be terrible, and it turns out to be not the case.
Cryostasis, if I were to see that at an event, or just to see some kind of demo, it's the kind of game that doesn't demo well. I don't think most games that move at a very slow, protracted pace are games that demo well anyway.
At the time, I just really didn't see the gameplay value in like having to stand by a stove or a furnace and warm your hands. Just that seemed to be like kind of like an overt way of like regenerating health. Of like, I'm just going to stand here and do nothing until I recharge my ability to do stuff again. Yeah, I would be very keen to check that game out.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to play it for you if you want.
Okay.
Because I think Cryostasis ended up being awesome, and we actually gave that game story of the year in our Game of the Year awards that year, and in my opinion, it rightfully demonstrated that. But I feel like I'm getting too far off topic of Far Cry 2 if I continue to speak about it.
There is no on topic when you're streaming live on the internet.
That's true. But I did love what Cryostasis did. You essentially ended up living people's past. You came across essentially corpses and did sort of a mind meld with them, if you will, and then relived the past of those people.
Kind of doing a little bit of like what ODST did with its narrative?
Yeah, except in this case, you changed the future by going into the past and reliving it.
Oh, that sounds much more exciting.
In this case, saving that person's soul, and in the process, allowing you to, for example, make progress in the game. So it was a really interesting conceit. But even beyond that, the whole story of getting on board this nuclear icebreaker vessel that had been that was frozen in the Arctic tundra was pretty fantastic, and it had sort of the story of the past, the story of the present, and sort of a fairy tale that happened all simultaneously. So it was a really interesting game. It also ran like crap. And that was the big problem with Cryostasis, is it performs pretty poorly.
Let's see. Is there a vehicle outside for me to use? Nope.
And also, if you need games with lots of action, Cryostasis is not for you. It is a game that you make slow progress, and it's a horror game.
Yeah.
Essentially, except you're in ice.
And remind me, what was the idea with Necrovision again?
Necrovision was it was a more traditional shooter at first, but it was a combination of World War II and demons.
Right.
Or I should say, gosh, I think it might have actually been World War... No, was it?
I think it was World War II.
II.
I don't think it was World War I. Although I did remember trenches being a significant part of the combat.
Yeah, but then ultimately in Necrovision you unlocked this these demonic abilities.
What am I looking at over there?
You had like demonic claws and special abilities that you could pull off. But it took a while to get there. Also, you rode a dragon.
Well, that makes everything great.
Yeah.
Oh, Outpost, you make me wish I had a sniping rifle. Next best thing.
And fire. Somebody said, do we stream PS3 games? Yes, we'll stream games on any platform we like.
Yes. This is platform independent. I wasn't anticipating that I'd be starting this show today. And well, I think this is the best platform to play this game on. It is excellent on other platforms, so I think it's a pretty nominal comparison.
Right.
Play this game on whatever you can get your hands on. I think pretty much these days, if you're interested in this game, you can probably get your hands on it pretty cheap. But also, it just meant that I could just log into Steam and download it onto this PC and be up and running.
Yeah, a lot of times that's great because then we don't have to bother our library to dig things up or to ask our friends to, hey, do you have a copy of this? Do you have a copy of this? And
Right.
see if we can borrow it. And yes, absolutely. Follow us on Twitch TV, twitch.tv/GameSpot. Follow us, well, on GameSpot. Follow us on Twitter. On Twitter, our official handle is GameSpot, clearly. I'm FiddleCub on Twitch, and Tyler is _real_Tyler W. I think I got that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
It is a mouthful to say, unfortunately.
It's the real Tyler W with underscores in between the and real.
And it was originally intended as a play on... Well, at the time everybody was getting on Twitter, everybody had to declare that they were the real version of whatever, because, there might have been fake, Neil Patrick Harris accounts or what have you. You were still the person shooting at me. Stop shooting at me, person.
Of course, now they're actually, there are actual verified accounts and things like that. But even then, I wonder, why do some of these people bother getting a verified account when they have so few followers? I'm sometimes not sure of the criteria.
Well, I think you need to have a certain number of followers to get a verified account. I don't know, maybe it's like 10,000 or something like that. Which I guess, if you're a celebrity... Oh dear, somebody's trying to run me over.
Whoa. Here's a mounted gun, that might help. Oh, not against that dude,
though. But mine was originally a play on Shaquille O'Neal's account of The Real Shaq.
But then you have interesting occasions where Dan Savage's actual Twitter handle is fake Dan Savage.
Yeah.
So, somebody's saying, what's the premise of the show? Do we just play old games or what? Why don't you explain?
Once again, we are taking this. So the show is called The B List, which is sort of a moniker for anything that's kind of like your B team or your. The idea of the show is that we play games that we think are interesting, are fascinating, are good, but most significantly tend to be overlooked or are not as loved as we feel as they ought to be. Maybe they're flawed. Aha, it is the C key.
So it could be underappreciated, things that we consider to be underappreciated classics, or it could be games that just didn't sell well or didn't get people's attention as much as we think, or just
or games that could have turned out better. You have mechanical problems, but are still unrealized potential. But games are still fascinating.
Yeah.
People often cite this game as having problems with constant tedium, and the game is always hard, and the checkpoints. Which enemies spawn at, you walk away from them and they respawn constantly, and that gets, tedious and frustrating. But I think that this game has a lot to offer as well.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Like Fire.
Fire has a lot to offer. Oh dear. Oh. That one dude that was there. Oh, hi.
Hello. Goodbye. I see some medical supplies and I will want them.
Good call.
It's nice that they flash brightly. I actually need to repair this vehicle before I can drive it out of the way. I need to stop being shot at.
You asked for too much. Somebody says, could we play Remember Me for PS3 when it comes out? And I'm sure that when Remember Me comes out that we will play plenty of it.
Yes. Keep on the lookout for stuff on that game. Soon. Well, yeah. We're
soon. Definitely.
We're definitely trying to get some stuff and get more information on that game because it is a game that I'm very curious about, and I'm sure that I'm not alone in that.
I hear their Google chats coming up in the background somewhere on this PC.
I don't think that's even my Google chatting. I am doing the Nightmare 3-point turn challenge.
Gosh, so sorry. Oh, pardon me.
All right. How are we doing on time?
We are
Not that I'm looking for good excuses.
It is 4:14.
4:14. We're doing plenty well on time. Not that I'm looking for excuses to stop playing Far Cry 3. But it would be good. Yeah, well, we'll definitely have time to. I need to get myself to a gun store, which I see a notification for that up here.
Somebody suggested that Too Human might be a good example of an interesting but flawed game to play.
I would. No, I should not pass judgment on that game so quickly. My initial impressions of that game were not what I would call positive.
No, mine neither. It's also a super interesting game, though. I will say that I think that it is interesting.
I mean, I do think that anything dealing with sort of like the because it does deal heavily with the Nordic view of the afterlife and things like that. I think that that's a often unused and interesting narrative scope to work with. I keep pressing the wrong key to get to the gunner seat.
I will say that in Too Human, dying is just the worst. And of course, dying should be the worst in a game, right? But in Too
Dying
Human,
is pretty much the worst in everything.
Boy, did they really make you hate dying. I'm so sorry. Suddenly my entire upper body feels dry and like a desert. It is the savannah inside my chest.
Kevin's innards are reliving the Far Cry 2 experience.
Yes.
Should I bother with that safe house? No. Oh, malaria.
I might excuse myself in a moment to get something to drink.
Where am I in this world?
You're getting there.
What I need is where I'm at. I need a gunnery shop.
What I need is where I am.
Because then I can at least re-up on ammo and swap my guns out for fresh guns. But I got paid for this mission. Oh, I went into the wrong one. This is where I exchange guns, not where I buy them.
Somebody hated Dark Souls. Oh no. We can't be friends. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Even Tyler and I don't even see eye to eye on everything, as amazing as that might be. For example, I think Vanquish is one of the best things ever, and you're like, oh yeah, Vanquish is fine.
Eric Tay, hero of the show.
You brought me water.
A refreshing beverage.
I might excuse myself momentarily anyway, just to unleash the crud.
I am just fine, thank you, Eric. What else can we get? We get an LMG. Ooh, a sniper rifle. Why are we not buying sniper rifles? Oh, because we don't have enough money to buy sniper rifles. I only have 9 diamonds and I need 10. Wait.
I agree, Demon Souls was harder than Dark Souls. But I wouldn't say that Dark Souls is easier, or is easy. I think Demon Souls was harder, but I don't think that means Dark Souls was easy. It still reminds me of that Atari 2600 Pac-Man gobble noise.
It's a really good interface noise.
I will be back momentarily so I can go and have a good cough that not everybody is privy to
Yeah.
through the microphone.
Spring for this reliability upgrade. And as we're looking around, oh, that's right. The sniper rifle replaces the assault rifle. I don't know if I want to quite commit. Let's give it a shot. What could go wrong? And I could also go with a silent shotgun, or instead of my pistol, a sort of sawed-off shotgun. Let's give that a try. Check our map here, and we are just north of where we need to be attacking.
I have returned, but I make no promises about whether or not I may make gross body noises while I sit here. But I will do my best to control my phlegm.
That's right, there is a sniper rifle that you can use in conjunction with your assault rifle. It's the dart gun, which is great because it's also a stealth weapon.
Nice.
Alright, I don't think those guys are going to be bothered anymore.
They're ultra dead.
They're pretty dead. You're not very dead. You're just...
I love how nonchalant he was about the entire thing.
I am but a soldier trapped in my animation loop of getting into the car and into the driver's seat to drive, but then I am shot, so now I need to do the falling out of car and dying animation. Such is my plight.
At least he understands his place in the world.
I bet there is a clever way I can...
I kind of wish Far Cry 3 had held on to the immersive map.
Yeah.
Especially because there is a noticeable load time.
Well, I think they did that as, so one of the... I have mixed feelings about the always available, fast travel in Far Cry 3. In one way, I mean, it shaves off one of the biggest endemic problems with... Hello, Buffalo. You will not murder me like you would have in Far Cry 3. One of the biggest jagged edges that people so readily complain about is how laborious it was to get anywhere and how much opposition you felt pretty much all the time playing this game.
Right.
Whereas in Far Cry 3, all you need to do is take over one of the pirate camps, and then suddenly that place not only is cleared for the duration of your gameplay, but you never need to worry about it, or suddenly it's a fast travel location.
Right. It's gamey, for sure.
Yeah.
Somebody asking what the specs on this PC are, and I don't rightfully know, because this is an NVIDIA machine, I think, whereas our other work machines are ATI machines.
I believe it has a GTX 560. As far as the CPU, I think it might be a Core i7. The machine is, as they say, nothing to be embarrassed about. And, we're really not taxing the game too heavily here.
I assume that you've got most of the visual settings cranked up.
Yes.
And of course on 1920 by 1080.
Yeah. Which is, a pretty easy resolution for a lot of modern PCs to pull off. Now that a lot of higher-end PC gamers are more interested in above 1080p displays.
2560
Yeah. Okay, that is probably the man I should have taken out first. That was a good time to get some cover and apply some healing.
Oh, God. Oh, well. Will your buddy revive you?
No, because I did not. Oh, he did! And he disappeared briefly and turned into a mass of guns.
Somebody asking if we've seen Steambox or a new PlayStation or Xbox.
No.
No. And even if we had, I'm sure that we wouldn't be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah, again, those are all things that we... Give us a year and all of us together will all know a lot more than we know now. If we're not already playing them.
God, you just dig so deep in your skin for that. You're like halfway through your appendage.
The weird thing about that one, that thing that really weirds me out about that one is, you seem to be digging deeper into your hand than you actually have hand. That's
kind of true.
If that logic makes any sense. I think you're the police chief I'm supposed to kill.
Oh, he's shooting at you. Just die. Joseph will be happy.
Yep.
Deputy Chief is giving weapons to UFO.
Somebody asking what the story of this game has to do with Far Cry 3?
Nothing.
0.
None whatsoever. Yeah, as we were talking about earlier, the narrative of the games are pretty much untethered from each other. Oh, that's...
Yep, different island, different continent.
I nearly killed my buddy there, which is a thing you can do pretty much any time in this game. In fact... Oh, nope, yeah, if I wanted to, I could kill him right now.
Why does he look like Marcus Phoenix?
Should I kill this guy? Chat, should I kill...
Should you kill this chat? Should he kill this dude? Should he kill his follower? His buddy?
Marty Allen Carr. What are you looking at, Marty?
Birds. No.
No?
Is the first response.
If I get a vote for yes, I'm taking it.
Kill your buddy, says Ricky Guitarist. Get a new buddy.
This is on you, Ricky.
Damn.
Okay, so this...
So you can use a syringe on them.
Yeah, so these guys die permanently. So if I want to, I can heal him. Okay, I'll shoot him, but I'll heal him.
See there, we got to have the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Don't kill Marty, he's a Brazilian, says LBP25 Brazil.
We did this for you, LBP25 Brazil. And now he's shooting at birds, maybe? You can also end up mercy killing here, like, which you just pump them full of, you just pump them up full of morphine until they die peacefully.
Right.
But I think that's the most interesting thing is that, pretty much at any point you can either allow to be killed or kill your buddies and they're gone permanently. Which, if you have finished this game, also plays out into the ultimate narrative of the game in some interesting ways.
Somebody's saying the author of Far Cry 3 story said it was all just supposed to be a parody of other terrible game stories. Well, that was part of what he was going for. I would suggest that he didn't really succeed at what he was trying to do. Sometimes when you try so hard to parody something, sometimes you end up being exactly that which you are parodying.
Right.
But I wouldn't say Far Cry 3's story is terrible. I would just say that I don't think it succeeded in what it wanted to do.
Yeah.
And the first half is definitely better than the second half.
Yeah.
Far Cry 3's story.
I don't know if it's so much spoiling anything in the game to evidence one of the things that I found most disappointing with it, which is that I hate it when shooters have their Far Cry 3 was a game with great villains. I thought Voss was an incredible character, and I thought that the way that his death was handled in the game was disappointing. And
agreed.
And also, I find that games' most pivotal moments, such as when the chief antagonists perish, should be done utilizing the game's best mechanics, and a shooter's best mechanics or most pivotal moments should not be resolved with QuickTime events. In fact, as my own particular taste in games are, I don't think anything should be resolved with a QuickTime event. Unless that's what your game is all about. If you're making a game like Heavy Rain.
But
that's
that, even then, the complexity of the QuickTime events in Heavy Rain, regardless of how much you like Heavy Rain, I think any of us could agree that the complexity of the QuickTime event more or less matched the intensity of the situation.
That is a very reasonable call there.
So, I would say yes. I'm just reminded of several games that ended with QuickTime events that I think were just absolutely silly.
Well, I mean, it came to a lovely, conclusion for me with shooters last year, where I was just finishing up Modern Warfare 3, which you finish off. What was the baddie's name in that? Vladimir Makarov, with a QuickTime event. And I was feeling pretty let down by that, and decided, well, let's try to end this evening of shooter gaming on a high note, because I believe that I was pretty close to the end of Battlefield 3 and the narrative campaign of that, which also ended with a QuickTime event.
Yeah. So, Transformers earlier this year. Had ended with a QuickTime event, Killzone 3, Bulletstorm. Which, in fact, what killed me about, because Bulletstorm and Killzone 3 came out on the same day.
Yeah.
Both of them had essentially the same exact ending. It was really weird.
Yeah. And in light of this, I like to defend, and I'm saying last year as if 2011 was last year, which it's not. It is now.
It's now 2013.
Yeah.
So.
But I like to defend our 2011 shooter of the year, Gears of War 3, because that is a game that ended with actual shooting.
Halo Reach is certainly a game that ended with actual shooting.
Oh, God, the ending of that game was fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's the thing where you're trying to hold off the forces. This is where I gotta save Marty before he dies horribly. Even though I
Shoot him in the balls.
even though I actually killed Marty.
Those bullets really don't want you to heal. Bullets are very single-minded sometimes. Somebody said I couldn't finish Alan Wake because it was too scary. I don't know that I would personally say Alan Wake is scary, but I think it's very atmospheric and very moody and chilling.
Yeah, I don't find that my experience with Alan Wake is that the scariest moments in that game were not the combat. Yeah, because I thought the enemies were. I think that the enemies work on a scary level. Probably for certain people, you know, it's just the triggers that you find frightening, and I don't think that the enemy, the enemies that you find frightening or that you might find frightening in some certain circumstances, other people might find kind of dopey, and I thought that the enemies in Alan Wake were a little bit dopey. But what I found really compelling in that game was the way that game conveyed the feeling of feeling like you were lost in the woods, particularly when the moments when the game's atmosphere comes up in a significant way.
Right.
Yeah, when you know that what was the enemies in that game, the Taken were coming, and you feel everything gets really misty and windblown. It kind of has that Lord of the Rings ring wraith look to it, where everything seems like it's like wisping away, and the ground seems like it's shifting under your feet, and the way light and shadows play tricks with your eyes and make you think that you're seeing movement where there isn't any. Evokes the feeling of if you've ever been lost and a little bit worried in the woods at night. It definitely evokes that feeling to an incredible degree.
For me, the most chilling moments were those that involved psychokinetic moments where suddenly you had things flying at you, and had to navigate past the stuff that was flying at you, or had to sort of... And also there's that great spot where you have to sort of escape from the hospital.
Yeah.
Which I think was done really well. So there are parts of that game that I think were done really well and relatively creepy.
Yeah, the telekinesis stuff are moments where I found more tense than out and out frightening.
Yeah, that seems to be a reasonable.
Because I was, because that's pretty much moments where you're entirely dependent on your flashlight, and rather than a thing that helps you, that is a resource that you can't replenish, or things are happening at a quicker rate than you have the ability to let the batteries recharge. So you're kind of just balancing between using the dodge mechanic and
oh dear.
Oh, it's this loop that...
I was saying Limbo I didn't find scary. I don't think Limbo was supposed to be scary. Definitely atmospheric, but I don't know that it was even trying to go for scary. Well, actually, there are a couple spots.
Yeah.
Like I actually thought that the spider thing was super creepy. Amnesia, it's funny because I'm the only person on Earth. It was definitely scary, but I think I'm the only person on Earth that wasn't as enamored by that game as other people seemed to be. But then again, I might have gotten maybe 1/3 of the way through it.
Yeah, I've only played through the first part of that, and I wouldn't say that I've really dug too deeply into what makes that game truly scary. But knowing that people often commend that game for its use of sound design.
I had trouble with its sound design, actually. There were certain events that didn't feel like they had weight. Like something would fall, and it would have that video game look of something that falls, where it's actually doesn't have as much weight as you would expect, and doesn't cause as much commotion as you would expect.
Yeah.
So.
But in general, I would cite that sound is often scarier than visuals, because what you can't see is, manifests in your imagination. As,
oh yes.
When something sounds scary, and if they nail that sense of sound design, if it sounds scary, it will probably manifest your mind as something way scarier than it could actually look like, and which is why games that succeed at being scary often do things to hide the thing that's supposed to be scary a lot. Games like Slender Man come to mind, where you spend most of the time not being able to see this thing that you're not supposed to look at in that game, because it will drive you crazy.
Well, I think just like darkness tends to be scary, I think silence can be very scary.
Yes.
So I think good sound design in a game that means to be scary means allowing the game to be silent.
Yeah.
So that the sound cues can have that much more power.
Yeah. But, in years past, at the end of the year, when we've awarded things like good sound design, oftentimes the games that get nominated for that sort of thing are, they often tend to be horror games.
Yep.
Let's get on till morning, or at least very early morning.
Is this some guy's dad? I don't know. Are you talking about me? I'm not a dad.
In answer to your question, neither Kevin nor myself are fathers. So, no.
If that's your way of making a crack and saying, hey, that dude looks old, whatever. That just means I've gotten to play a whole many lot more games, which is proper English in somebody's...
Hasn't done anything for our grammar.
Yeah, but it does mean that I've had that much more time to play cool games.
Yes.
So... Oh, is that some dude's father, like the NPC?
Oh,
okay.
As far as Josip?
Josip might be somebody's father, I suppose. But
Given his sordid history, he might be many people's fathers.
I thought you were talking about me, because that occasionally I'll get that in a stream. It's like, man, you're too old to like video games. It's really? I'm 40. Is that really that old?
I hope that's never the case.
Yeah.
Too old to like games.
You'd be surprised at how many. This guy doesn't know anything. He's too old. He doesn't know what's good anymore, or what the kids really like. It just means I have a lot broader of experience to draw from.
Old age and treachery.
That's true. And drunkenness.
I think the drunkenness falls more into the realm of youth and enthusiasm.
Yeah, but nobody really drinks like old people drink. So he's saying, does anybody have any tips for Far Cry 2 on the 360 version? I have so many problems. I guess it depends on what problems you're having.
Well, I know that... I think I pretty much gave up on that game at one of the worst possible spots, which is where it's one of the main story exposition missions as you... Okay, so we've got this big open area now, and eventually it shifts to a different part of the world. And I think this is a mission area. I don't think I actually want to deal with this area, because it'll just be a bottleneck for me with lots of combat and rule of reward. So I'm going to turn around and go back the way I came. Yeah, so there were some parts that I encountered that... actually, I know what I would like to do. I would like to get myself to a gun shop and do a mission to get some new guns. So left, and then make my way up there. So, you know, eventually you leave this part of the map, and you go to a completely different. Basically, you go to a whole new area that was previously inaccessible. And part of my experience of that says this guy gets going in the right direction, he's going to start shooting me, so I'm going to beat him to it. So you end up on this, doing this mission with this guy, and basically you're on a boat, and you're constantly being beset by mortars, and so you've got it has some tropes and things you've seen in other games where it's like the multi-turret sequence where you've got to hop from gunnery placement to gunnery placement while defending the boat, but you also, because the boat takes damage, you need to constantly be repairing it, all while also not being killed by mortars. Sorry, that guy was not killed by a mortar.
Somebody asking again what our specs are, and I think we concluded that we think this particular machine has a GTX 560.
That sounds familiar. Yeah, I think it's 560 or 570 or something like that.
And a Core i7 in there. It's definitely an Intel and NVIDIA machine.
Windows 7. I don't think any. Well, you've played around with Windows 8 a little bit.
I have Windows 8 on my laptop at home. That ended up being a mistake ultimately, because I don't think my laptop really was ready to handle Windows 8.
Yeah.
I now have a lot of problems with that machine, so I've been holding back.
Do some magic bolt repair here.
I like Herberkel's response, which is we've got an i9 with quadruple 690s.
Give us a couple years. Although CES is this week, something like that could be announced.
How are we not lagging while we're streaming? Because we're not. We don't use a software streaming method. We actually use a relatively involved hardware setup that allows us to stream to multiple places at one time without it impacting the performance of the PC.
Long story short, we have, so our video feed is being piped over to a different computer, which is handling all the streaming separately. It's what allows us to stream to Akamai, which is our streaming host for the stuff that appears on GameSpot.com. And it is also being streamed out to Twitch, which it also handles that stream. I don't believe we are streaming to YouTube at the moment. I'm cutting my way across the wilderness here because I want to go north, but I would like to avoid that. I might even go in the right way. Yes, here's a gun store.
Somebody's saying is the hardware is super expensive, and yes, the hardware is.
I cannot recommend our system setup for the every person stream, because the reason for that is because it's very expensive, and our setup requires a specialized computer that is in the tens of thousands, so don't use that.
But there are really affordable consumer options nowadays.
Absolutely,
for people that want to stream.
Like we were discussing earlier, probably the best option for people right now is the Elgato Game Capture, which also recently released a software update that allows you to stream from it. Now, is that a viable solution to being able to stream from a PC?
Yeah, I've used it to stream from a PC.
Do you just because the benefit of that is that takes that accepts an HDMI input, so it works with most consoles, right?
And it does work with a PC that has HDMI output. Ideally, you would send the output through the Game Capture HD, and then you can just string the signal back to your monitor, and it's just going right to the monitor while you play. But then you have the Game Capture HD, the USB, bit hooked up to a separate PC, usually a laptop or something. So you're actually streaming from the laptop. Your actual hardware isn't taking a hit. It is possible, and I do this on my work PC here, it is possible to actually use the same computer you're playing the game on to stream from, even though you're using a hardware solution and not a software solution. So basically you just it's very I don't want to explain it here, but you can actually use the same PC, and it's a lot less difficult on your PC than if you were to just try to use XSplit and stream from the game directly. It's much less of a hassle for your CPU. But ideally you do use a second PC to stream from if you want to stream from PC using some of this capture hardware that you can get.
Okay. So I'm just looking at. So I'm going to be doing a weapons mission here, so I can attack a convoy of weapons in order to get access to more guns.
Somebody's saying, "What's NVIDIA Shield?" I suppose we can answer that.
We can. Well, in so much that we know, and our folks on the ground in Las Vegas CS, I'm hoping we'll be able to answer that question further over the next few days. Although most of the news articles I saw said that they didn't have a working prototype they're willing to show to the press, but maybe it's behind closed doors thing. NVIDIA Shield is a handheld gaming platform running Android and Tegra 4. Tegra's NVIDIA's mobile graphics chip solution. Tegra 3 is very popular in a lot of Android-based phones and tablets now, and its performance holds up pretty well. So I can only expect that the Tegra 4 will be pretty excellent gaming platform for doing 3D graphics and lots of good stuff. Design-wise, it looks a lot like an Xbox 360 controller with a folding screen attached to the top of it. As far as Android gaming, I mean that's a subject that I'm interested in so much that is a platform that I choose to. I'm a fan of it to the point of where you could say I evangelize it somewhat. I think it's a neat platform for mobile computing. Mobile gaming has had kind of a rough. I'm kind of driving around here because I'm talking about things that have nothing to do with shooting people or navigating Africa.
Welcome to our world where...
and now we're upside down. This is not Halo.
Where talking and playing is sometimes not the easiest thing, but it's also worth pointing out, of course, that this platform won't just play Android games, but you can also use it to stream games from your PC.
Now, this is where my knowledge gets a little bit more hazy about everything that they've just announced. So they just started talking about their what was it called, the Grid platform,
right?
Which is a streaming system that basically a turnkey solution for achieving basically what services like OnLive tried to achieve last year and eventually had a lot of trouble with. And my assumption is that you will be able to use this. What they talked about with the Edge platform doesn't strike me as anything that end users need to be concerned with. That sounds like if you're interested in getting into the game streaming service, game streaming, the interactive stuff, like what OnLive was doing, this is a piece of hardware you should be very interested in.
Personally, though, from my perspective, the Shield doesn't interest me as a sort of intermediary between me and my PC games, because I can already just go up to my PC and play games, although I suppose there is something to be said for people that would just like to grab this controller with the built-in screen and just flip it up and start playing something on their PC.
Right. I mean, if you want to leave your PC running and, you know, streaming something like Far Cry 3, and then, you know, if you travel a lot, want to be able to play Far Cry 3 away from home without having to lug around a heavy gaming laptop or, you know, something like that, you know, you could stream to this handheld thing and play away from the road. I mean, at least, you know, while you're on the road and away from your PC. Or at least I presume that is how it would make sense to work. My hope is that also once, you know, people get on board with, you know, providing streaming content services using NVIDIA Grid, that, you know, that's something that people will be able to play on their Project Shield devices. You know, that's the hope. But the thing that confuses me is it seems like a back-end technology project with an end-user technology product, but no one in the middle helping to deliver one thing to another. So it struck me as a very strange announcement. And but, you know, hopefully, you know, with hardware manufacturer like NVIDIA on board, I certainly hope that you know, ultimately we'll be seeing. Oh, is this my convoy? Is that who I just killed everybody from?
They're showing as red.
Well, I mean, anybody.
No, you might have killed them.
Anybody with a gun will show up as red.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Stop shooting at me. I'm just gonna go for the gusto here. I think this is my weapons truck, so I'll load up and mission completed. Now it's worth mentioning that we have just been given the 5-minute warning. Which means that unfortunately I have to stop playing Far Cry 2. Which is fine because I believe I may have bitten off more than I can chew at this exact moment. Oh wait.
I like when you do that though.
That was me forgetting which hotkey is the heal key, and I was just mashing the map button. I told you to stop shooting at me.
Yeah, somebody mentioned too about the size of the shield does look a little fat.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty beefy gaming handheld.
Well, Tyler, I have faith that you're actually making this work. Just throw a few grenades.
I was hoping to get into some Molotovs here. There we go.
There we go.
Let's,
so we've got like 3 minutes left. So I think at this point, Tyler's
light
just
everything
like,
on
let's
fire.
light everything on fire.
This is really what Far Cry, technology-wise, this is kind of what this game did best, is that propagating fire system. Although I seem to be in an area that fire is not propagating well, probably because I'm in a jungle and not a savannah. Wait, I'm hearing that telltale crackle. Oh well. So this has been our look at Far. Wait, I don't think we've switched to. We're not going to quite wrap things up. We're going to make them kick us out. No.
Are we? What you doing?
I'm taking this Jeep.
Okay. Okay.
And so we did all this work to avail ourselves of new guns. So let's go towards a gun store.
At the gun store.
Any other questions in the chat? Oh yeah, one of my favorite things about this Project Shield device is that so this is NVIDIA, you know, pretty major player getting into mobile gaming on Android. Last time we saw it was a software developer with Epic and Chair getting on board with what they called Project Sword, which that eventually turned into Infinity Blade. So I like to make a mental connection there, even though there really isn't one. And what did we get for our troubles here?
Let's take a look.
AK-47, a MAC-10, and
a rocket launcher.
G7. Of course, that only enables us to the privilege of buying these guns.
And with only 6 diamonds...
We're not, yeah, we need to go on more diamond hunts. Or take on another mission, because that's one of the nicest things about your warlords here that you do work for, is that they pay you up front.
Hello, call me Joe. Who's saying hello, Kevin? Hello. And I bet you Dan is going to come in here and kick us out any minute.
Well, we need him to switch to the main camera feed so we can say goodbye.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
otherwise they'll just be, like, awkwardly looking and going, hey.
It's like, hey.
Instead, I'm just going to blow it.
Oh, very nice. That worked out well.
Oh, but now I'm in an area where I can cause some real trouble.
Got some Molotovs?
I need to go over here and get some, and then we can light some trees on fire. In fact, you know, why don't I just swap it out for the swap out my get my flamethrower.
Is your malaria just sort of?
No, that's just that I'm tired. You know, that's the end of that sprinting cycle.
Oh, okay.
I guess I don't have a flamethrower here. That was just he gave that to me at the. Yeah, because it should be over here somewhere. I guess I need to unlock that, even though the game gave it to me. But that's fine. Now we're equipped with Molotovs and we can burn stuff.
Yeah, let's go ahead and burn stuff as our final hurrah.
Gift.
There we go.
Yeah, so the propagating fire was one of the really, really cool things in this game, of just being able to set stuff on fire and watch it spread and cause chaos. And
it's neat watching the wind blow it. Like, you can see the direction the wind is blowing because of the way the underbrush sways.
Yeah.
And of course the fire moves in the same direction and propagates the same way, the way you would expect it to be.
Although it is coming towards me here, I'm probably not staying in the smartest spot in the world. So I'm going to try and find myself... Maybe I'll be safe on this slab of stone here. Let's hope so.
As we watch the world burn.
Oh, and then...
Oh, now you're out of Molotovs and a throw grenade.
Which is fine.
That's all right. You still get to see branches fall from the trees.
So that's been our look at Far Cry 2 and our inaugural episode of the B list. If you have any, if you like this show, if you like other things that we do, follow us on Twitch, subscribe to us on YouTube, and also follow us on Twitter. You can follow the Twitter account at GameSpot, also at FiddleCub, and I am at _real_Tyler W. As for, we'll be back, we're going to be constantly streaming live throughout this week. Tomorrow we're going to be taking a look at some of the IGF nominees that went out today, the Indie Games Foundation. So we'll be taking a look at stuff like Cart Life, which we took a look at last week in an offline video. And also games like FTL and, what was it, Kentucky Route Zero?
I've never heard of that.
You've never heard of this?
No,
are you
I feel terrible. I feel like a terrible person.
Way to be up on the news. And we'll be back with this show next week, next Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific. And I believe, unless somebody changes my mind, we'll be taking a look at Mirror's Edge.
Hurrah.
And bye all. Thanks for watching.